Well, welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. Now, many of us who subscribe to newspapers have a bad habit, a good habit, depending on how you look at it, of stacking up all the newspapers. Usually they end up somewhere in the garage or something of that nature. Sometimes we do it simply because we're sort of the kind of people that accumulate things, don't want to throw anything away. Some of us do it to give it to organizations for paper drives. I don't know if they do that much anymore, you know, to kind of help the Boy Scouts out with recycling, and they get paid for all this paper that they turn in. Some of us do it just to simply be able to peruse past editions of the newspaper to see how things were reported, you know, in the years, months that were past, to see just how well the reporting came out. Was it accurate? Did they stick to their word? Whatever the case may be. And it's very interesting when you look at this in regards to Syria and the rebels and Iraq and ISIS and that sort of thing. Regrettably, if you really notice what's going on, you can't say anything other than the fact that we have a president of the United States who is a liar. Can't use any other word and make the point well enough, I don't think. Regretfully, that's a hard thing, a harsh thing to have to say about the so-called leader of the country. And the president really isn't supposed to be the leader. He's really supposed to be the administrator of the laws that Congress passes. That has changed around. Now he uses the pen and the phone and whatever else and tells Congress what to do or what not to do. But at any rate, when you start to look at these past newspapers, and you don't have to go back very far to get kind of a sense of what's going on in Syria and Iraq. For instance, here's one out of the Wall Street Journal, and it's in June, the latter part of June, 27th. U.S. set to train, arm Syria rebels. That's what it says here. And yet, the next thing you find out is that ISIS has, you know, occupied great parts of Iraq and that sort of thing. And just a few days later, it says ISIS claims supremacy amongst extremists. And this is, of course, in the Wall Street Journal as well. Another part, the same date, militants leverage Iraq gains in Syria. So we see that these militants, called ISIS, have occupied not only the Iraqi territory and are attacking the Kurds and the Christians and the other minorities in Iraq. They are also becoming more of the predominant rebels within Syria, which the United States is going to arm, supposedly in opposition to the Syrian government. Of course, that's our business, right? It's our business to go around and tell everybody they need a change in government. We did it in Libya, and instead of having a dictator like Gaddafi, now we have terrorists like Al-Qaeda taking over the country. Now we see the results of what we did in Syria coming home as in the form of ISIS in Iraq, to where now the Iraq Christian minority feels militant threat. And these headlines served as the excuse to go in and help the minorities in Iraq. Also, it served to change the government once again in Iraq. In the Chicago Tribune, Kerry in Iraq to press for change. Financial Times, Kerry calls for new government in Iraq. Well, now they have the new government after quite a bit of imbroglio. And at the same time, we see that our forces, in the air at least, are going and attacking ISIS positions. And it's done in the name of protecting the minorities, such as the Kurds and the Yazidi. But have you noticed that the Christians have disappeared off the pages? They said that they were going in to help the Christian minorities. You don't hear about them helping them at all. What you hear about is that they're helping the Yazidi and the Kurds. Now we have this last Friday in the Wall Street Journal again, an editorial, How to Save Iraq and Honor American Sacrifice. We're going to honor American sacrifice by having more American sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it's coming to. We just can't seem to do anything right anymore in these countries. Let me read you just one little part. Now keep in mind last week's segment that we videoed and posted here in regard to what I'm going to read now. The United States could also remove the absurd and anachronistic designation of the Kurdistan Democratic Party and the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan as Tier 3 terrorist organizations. Doing so would be an act of goodwill that would resonate with the beleaguered Kurds. Here we have terrorist organizations that suddenly we're going to go help protect them from the ISIS terrorists. So now these terrorists are now going to be our friends, when before they were our enemies. Now again, I raised the question last week, are we going to be arming Kurds that will come back later on and haunt us, where they will again become the terrorists? We can take them off the terrorist watch list today. What is it going to be tomorrow? And if you look at the origins, particularly of the Kurdistan Democratic Party, you'll find that it was the Soviets that started this party to begin with. Now this is different from the Kurdish Workers' Party, which also the Soviets started. And if you go back and look at all of this, it is very convoluted. It's really a mess within Kurdistan itself, you know, as to who's who and what's what and what direction they're going to take and what leadership they're going to have outside of the country, whether it's going to be the United States or Russia or whomever. And it's a real serious mess. So now we've got calls to eliminate people from the terrorist list because they're the minority fighting ISIS, which is a bigger terrorist problem. So it's a really messy, awfully messy. You don't want to see people suffer. You don't want to see genocide. And I've seen some pretty outrageous videos of individuals being slaughtered in Iraq. It's not pleasant to watch. The thing that bothers me the most when I watched a recent video was hundreds of Iraqi, whatever sect they are, being trucked out to an open field, laid out on the ground, and shot one at a time. Hundreds of them. And then by a river, shot, dumped in the river, shot, dumped in the river. And they all walked up to be shot. They all laid there docilely to be shot. I do not understand that. I cannot understand how hundreds of men cannot do something to at least go down fighting. To just docilely be eliminated is incredible. The same thing happened to the Jews. I could not understand how they would run to an open ditch, for instance, in Russia and Poland, and just stand on top of dead bodies to be shot without resisting. I couldn't do that, I don't think. I hope I couldn't. I hope I could go down resisting. If they don't resist today, they won't resist tomorrow. You can talk about all these slogans about out of my cold dead hand and all that business, but if people don't get involved today and resist today, they will be the ones that are led out by these poor Iraqis to be docilely shot. So we have a number of different problems. We have the problem of the nature of the leadership of our government at this time, messing things up so badly it's incredible. We also have human nature, where we see people just allowing their own elimination. It's just plain incredible. I don't want to leave you on that downer, because to me, resistance to tyranny has to be taken. We today have the ability to throw a book instead of use a bullet. Let's do it. Let's educate our fellow Americans, get involved before these things start coming at home to our country and start that process against our people. Until next week, we'll see you then.